I thought marrying into wealth would be my fairy tale. Instead, my mother-in-law secretly recorded my worst postpartum breakdowns, edited them to make me look insane, and tried to steal my baby through CPS and the courts. But what she didn't know, I was recording too. And what I captured at their precious charity gala didn't just expose their plan to frame me, it burned their perfect reputation to the ground. This is how I destroyed the family that tried to destroy me. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Sophie and I'm 25 years old. Well, I was 25 when this nightmare began. I've been married to James for 2 years now, and we have a 6-month-old son named Oliver. James is 29, comes from old money, the kind of family where your last name opens doors and your reputation is worth more than actual currency. The Hartwells own a successful investment firm that's been around for 3 generations. My background? Complete opposite. My mom's a nurse, my dad's a high school teacher. We're solid middle-class people who work hard and pay our bills on time. Nothing fancy, but we're happy. I should have seen the red flags at my wedding, but I was so in love. I convinced myself I was imagining things. It was 2 years ago, and it should have been the happiest day of my life. Instead, it became Patricia's. That's my mother-in-law production. She's 58, elegant in that cold, untouchable way, and she insisted on planning everything. I mean everything. I wanted blush pink roses. She changed them to white peonies because they were more sophisticated. I wanted the reception at this beautiful barn venue. She booked the country club because the Hartwells have held every major family event there for 40 years. Every choice I made was overridden with a tight smile and a comment about maintaining the Hartwell standard. When I tried to include some of my family's traditions, my grandmother's recipe for the wedding cake, a unity ceremony my parents did at their wedding, Patricia actually laughed. Not a warm laugh. A dismissive little chuckle that made me feel about 2 inches tall. "Let's keep things elegant, dear," she said, patting my hand like I was a child who'd suggested we serve pizza at a state dinner. But the worst part? The toast. Rachel, James's sister, 27 and stunning in that way that makes other women feel inadequate, stood up with her champagne glass and smiled at the crowd. "James has always had such refined taste," she said, her eyes sliding over me with barely concealed disdain. "In everything. His cars, his clothes, his choice of restaurants. I'm sure Sophie will grow into the role of a Hartwell wife eventually." The room laughed. James laughed. I sat there with a frozen smile, feeling my cheeks burn, telling myself she didn't mean it like that. That I was being too sensitive. That it was just sister teasing. When I brought it up to James later, he squeezed my hand and said, "Babe, that's just Rachel being Rachel. She's protective of me. And Mom, she just takes time to warm up to people. Give it time. They'll love you." God, I was so naive. The first year of marriage was death by 1,000 cuts. Every Sunday, we'd have dinner at the Hartwell estate, this massive house with actual columns and a circular driveway, and I'd sit there while Patricia picked me apart piece by piece. "That dress is a bit casual for brunch with the Ashfords, don't you think? You're still doing that little graphic design hobby? How sweet. James has always preferred more sophisticated flavors. Perhaps you could take a cooking class." She'd ask about my family with this patronizing curiosity, like we were an anthropology exhibit. "How quaint that your mother still works at the public school. Doesn't she want to retire? Never mind that my mom loves her job and is amazing at it. Never mind that not everyone has a trust fund to fall back on." Rachel was worse because she wasn't even pretending to be polite. She'd touch James constantly, his arm, his shoulder, his back, in this possessive way that made my skin crawl. She'd bring up his ex-girlfriends, always women from their social circle with hyphenated last names and boarding school educations. "Remember when you dated Charlotte Pemberton? God, you two were stunning together. Like a magazine spread." Now that was a power couple. Every single time I complained to James, he had an excuse. "That's just how my mother is. She means well. Rachel's always been protective of me. She doesn't mean anything by it. Sophie, you're too sensitive. You need thicker skin if you're going to be part of this family." And I believed him. Every single time. I thought if I just tried harder, dressed better, learned to cook fancier meals, smiled more, laughed at Rachel's cruel jokes, if I just became more like them, they'd accept me. I was making excuses for people who saw me as an obstacle, not family. Then I got pregnant. I was thrilled. I actually thought a baby would fix everything, would finally unite us as a family. I called Patricia first, before even telling my own parents, because I wanted her to feel included. Her response? Silence. Then, well, that was fast. Are you sure you're ready? You're so young, Sophie. Rachel's response when she found out? I hope you realize how much your body is going to change. James has always been attracted to women who take care of themselves. She said it with this sweet smile, like she was giving me friendly advice, but her eyes were cold. Throughout my pregnancy, it got worse. Patricia started showing up to my doctor's appointments uninvited. She'd ask the doctor questions about my mental health, my stability, whether first-time mothers my age were equipped for the challenges ahead. She questioned every decision I made, my birth plan, my choice to breastfeed, the pediatrician I selected. Nothing was good enough. Rachel made cruel jokes about my weight gain and posted throwback photos on Instagram of James with his thin, beautiful ex-girlfriends, always with captions like TBT to the good old days. And James? He started traveling more for work. When I'd call him crying, overwhelmed and hormonal, he'd sigh like I was exhausting him. Sophie, my mother raised 2 successful children. Maybe you should listen to her advice instead of getting defensive. And Rachel is just being Rachel. Stop being so paranoid. I had no friends in their world. Every woman I met at their country club events looked at me like I was a stain on expensive upholstery. My own friends didn't understand what I was dealing with because from the outside, I looked so lucky. Rich husband, beautiful house, baby on the way. What did I have to complain about? I started doubting my own reality. Was I too sensitive? Too young? Too not enough? Then Oliver was born and everything changed. But not for the better. Patricia and Rachel were at the hospital before my own parents arrived. I hadn't even called them yet. I was still in labor, exhausted and overwhelmed, but somehow they knew. James had called his mother first. That should have told me everything, but I was too tired to process it. Patricia swept into the room like she owned it, immediately criticizing everything. The hospital I'd chosen wasn't their hospital, you know, where Hartwell babies had been born for generations. My birth plan was unrealistic. And when Oliver finally arrived, 8 pounds of perfect baby boy, Patricia tried to hold him before I'd even gotten to properly bond with him. The nurse had to physically block her while I had skin-to-skin contact. Patricia, the mother needs time with the baby first, the nurse said firmly. Patricia's smile was ice. Of course. I'm just so excited to meet my grandson. The first 2 months of Oliver's life were absolute hell. Patricia showed up at my apartment every single day unannounced with her suggestions. Oliver's feeding schedule was wrong. I was holding him too much. I was going to spoil him. I wasn't holding him enough. Was I bonding with him properly? My apartment was too small, too cluttered, not suitable for raising a Hartwell heir. You seem overwhelmed, dear, she'd say, watching me struggle with a colicky baby at 2 in the afternoon while I was still in my pajamas. Maybe Oliver should stay with me for a few nights. I have so much more space, so many more resources. Rachel would show up too, always perfectly dressed in designer outfits with her hair and makeup flawless, while I had spit up on my shirt and hadn't showered in 2 days. She'd take photos with Oliver for Instagram, calling herself Auntie Rachel like she was Mother of the Year, then look at me with this mixture of pity and disgust. You look exhausted, Sophie. Are you sure you can handle this? Some women just aren't cut out for motherhood. It's nothing to be ashamed of. I was drowning. The postpartum period is hard for everyone. The sleepless nights, the hormones, the constant fear that you're doing everything wrong. But I had no support system. James was traveling again, gone for days at a time. When he was home, his mother was in his ear constantly and he'd come to me with concerns. Mom says Oliver seems fussy when you're alone with him. Is everything okay? Rachel mentioned you haven't been getting dressed during the day. Are you depressed? I wasn't depressed. I was exhausted. I was a new mother doing everything by herself while being judged and criticized every single second. But I started to wonder, was I depressed? Was I failing? Was I really not cut out for this? 3 months after Oliver was born, I had a complete breakdown. James was away on a 2-week business trip in Singapore. I'd been alone with Oliver for 5 days straight. He'd been crying for hours, just crying, and nothing I did would calm him down. I tried feeding him, changing him, rocking him, singing to him. Nothing worked. I was so tired I felt delirious. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours at a time in weeks. I finally put Oliver in his crib. He was safe, fed, clean, and I locked myself in the bathroom. I sat on the floor and just sobbed. Deep, ugly crying where you can't catch your breath. That's when Patricia showed up. She had a key. James had given it to her for emergencies and she let herself in. She found me on the bathroom floor, still in my pajamas at 3 in the afternoon, mascara streaked down my face, completely falling apart. I expected comfort. Wasn't that what mothers did? What grandmothers did? Instead, Patricia pulled out her phone. "Sophie, dear, I'm very concerned about you," she said, and I could hear her recording. "This doesn't seem healthy. Look at you. You can't even get dressed. The baby has been crying for hours. Maybe we should call James home. Or perhaps you need professional help. You can't care for a baby when you're in this state." I should have seen it then. The calculation in her eyes. The way she was documenting my worst moment. But I was so broken down, so tired, so convinced I was failing as a mother, that I actually thanked her for her concern. "You're right," I whispered. "I'm sorry. I'm trying so hard, but I don't know what I'm doing." She helped me up, got me some water, and stayed until I'd calmed down. She was almost kind that day. Almost. And I thought maybe she did care in her own way. I was still making excuses for her. Still convincing myself that she meant well. But 3 weeks later, everything changed. James was on another business trip, this time for 2 weeks. I was alone with Oliver on a Tuesday morning when someone knocked on my door. I opened it, expecting a package delivery. It was Child Protective Services. My blood went cold. The woman at my door showed me her badge and explained, very professionally, that they'd received reports about Oliver's care. Reports that I appeared unstable. That the baby was often heard crying for hours. That I'd been seen acting erratically. That there were concerns about postpartum psychosis. I couldn't breathe. This couldn't be happening. Who would call CPS on me? Why? The inspection was the most humiliating experience of my life. This stranger walked through my apartment, examining everything. Looking in my refrigerator, checking Oliver's nursery, asking me invasive questions about my mental health. She watched me interact with Oliver, checking his weight, his development, looking for signs of neglect or abuse. Oliver was perfect. Healthy, well-fed, hitting all his milestones, clearly loved and cared for. The apartment was clean, maybe a little cluttered with baby stuff, but not dirty. I answered every question honestly, tears streaming down my face the entire time. The worker found nothing. No evidence of neglect, no signs of abuse, no reason to remove Oliver from my care. But the report stayed on file. A permanent mark on my record as a mother. When James finally came home, I was devastated. I told him everything, crying so hard I could barely speak. Someone had called CPS on me. Someone had tried to take our baby. His response made my stomach drop. "Sophie, calm down. CPS has to investigate every report, it's their job. It was probably just a concerned neighbor who heard Oliver crying. You have been pretty emotional lately. Maybe this is a sign you should see someone, just to be safe." For Oliver's sake. He didn't believe me when I said his family was behind it. He thought I was being paranoid, losing my mind. And honestly, part of me wanted to believe he was right. I didn't want to accept that my husband's family would stoop this low. But then it happened again. 2 weeks later, another CPS call. This time with specific details, things only someone who'd been in my home would know. The color of Oliver's nursery walls. The brand of formula I kept as backup. The time of day Oliver usually napped. The worker who came was different, more skeptical, clearly wondering why I was getting multiple reports. At the next family dinner, Patricia brought it up casually, like we were discussing the weather. "Sophie, James mentioned you had another visit from Child Services. That must be so stressful for you. You know, if you ever felt overwhelmed, James and I have discussed that Oliver could stay with us. We have so much more space, so many more resources. It might take some pressure off you." Rachel smiled over her wine glass. "Sometimes mothers just need a break. There's no shame in admitting you can't handle it." James squeezed my hand under the table, like I should be grateful for their concern. I felt like I was going insane. But something inside me was shifting. The fear was turning into anger. Then Rachel started coming on to James. It was subtle at first, always sitting next to him, laughing too loud at his jokes, finding excuses to touch him. But it escalated. I'd catch her leaning into him, whispering in his ear. She'd text him constantly, always with some excuse about family matters. And she started making comments to me. "James needs a strong partner, Sophie. Someone who can handle the pressure of being a Hartwell wife. Are you sure you're that person?" James was pulling away from me too. His family was in his ear constantly, and he started questioning everything I did. Was I feeding Oliver enough? Why did I look so tired all the time? Maybe I did need help. Maybe I was unstable. Then came the lunch that changed everything. Patricia invited me to meet her at an upscale restaurant, just the two of us. When I arrived, there was a man in an expensive suit sitting with her. She introduced him as Richard, the family attorney. I should have left right then, but I sat down, my heart pounding. Patricia ordered for both of us, then slid papers across the table. Sophie, dear, we need to have a difficult conversation. We're all very concerned about you and, more importantly, about Oliver's well-being. The papers were a proposed custody arrangement. Oliver would live primarily with Patricia and James. I would have supervised visitation until I got help. We have documentation of your instability, Patricia said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. Multiple CPS reports. Testimony from family members about concerning behavior. And Sophie, we have video evidence of your breakdowns. My hands were shaking. What video? She pulled out her phone and showed me. It was a compilation of footage me crying on the bathroom floor, looking disheveled in pajamas at odd hours, struggling with Oliver, having moments of frustration and exhaustion. All the normal, vulnerable moments of early motherhood, edited and spliced together to make me look mentally ill. Even the audio was manipulated, cut to make me sound incoherent. I've been recording our visits because I was so worried about you, Patricia said. This footage shows someone who clearly cannot care for an infant. Richard, the lawyer, spoke up. If you fight this, we'll use this in court. The Hartwell name carries considerable weight in this city. We have resources you can't match. You'll lose Oliver completely and you'll lose any chance of a relationship with James. But if you agree to this arrangement now, we can keep it private. We can tell people you needed help and we stepped in. You get to save face. I looked at Patricia, at this woman who had spent 2 years systematically destroying me. She was so confident, so smug. She thought she'd won. And that's when something inside me snapped. Not broke, snapped into focus. I started crying. Not fake crying, real tears, because I was genuinely devastated. But I used it. I let them think I was breaking. I have been struggling, I said, my voice shaking. Maybe you're right. Maybe I do need help. Patricia's smile was triumphant. Of course, dear. Take a few days to think about it. But know that we're watching. One more CPS call, one more sign you're not coping, and we'll file for emergency custody. We're doing this for Oliver. You understand, don't you? I nodded, wiped my tears, and left. Then I went to war. I found a lawyer, a real one, not someone from their social circle. I told him everything. He said Patricia might have broken wiretapping laws with those recordings, but I needed proof of the conspiracy. So I became strategic. I installed security cameras in my apartment. I started recording every interaction with them, legally. I requested my CPS files and discovered the anonymous calls came from burner phones, but with details only Patricia and Rachel would know. I hired a private investigator, and I played my role perfectly. I pretended to fall apart. I made them think their plan was working. I went to family dinners looking defeated and broken. I let Patricia and Rachel gloat. While they celebrated their victory, I was building my case. And what my investigator found was even worse than I'd imagined. Rachel had been texting her friends about seducing James, saying if she could just prove I was crazy, James would finally see she was the right woman for him. Patricia had been embezzling from the family's charity foundation almost $400,000 meant for underprivileged children, spent on her vacations and jewelry. I had everything. Every recording, every text, every piece of evidence. But I didn't want to just win in court. I wanted to destroy them the way they tried to destroy me. The Hartwell Family Foundation's annual charity gala was in 3 weeks. And I was going to make sure everyone saw exactly who they really were. They thought they could steal my baby because I was too young, too poor, too weak to fight back. But they were about to learn the hardest lesson of their lives: never underestimate a mother protecting her child. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and smash the like button. Drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from and whether you've ever dealt with toxic in-laws. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens at that gala. Part 2 is coming soon, and the revenge is absolutely beautiful.